Ora si registrerà la conferenza.
There was not a problem.
No. Okay, but just please, if you have after this, you can also email it to us. Yeah?
Yeah, it's Benjamin from Switzerland.
Hi, Benjamin.
Hi. So our project is about autonomous vehicle and people with disability. So the goal is to improve the inclusion of people with disabilities through these autonomous vehicles. And for the moment, we stopped the project. Indeed, we are with our population is a vulnerable population, so we cannot do the test, and also the smart shuttle are not more running during this period in Switzerland and in Sion. So it's, yeah, for the moment we stop everything.
May I maybe ask, are there people in this call at the moment that are still doing stuff in their project that is actually that they can still do things for the project?
You hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Muriel. So, well, we experienced the same thing as the previous participant because we need to, right now, we need to get into the test period with stakeholders, and there are also disabled people, so very fragile. So we can't do that anymore, but we're trying to work. We still work on the prototypes thanks to the highlights that the stakeholders gave us before, but we can't provide the prototypes to them so that they can try them. So we are in a difficult situation.
Yeah, probably in many cases the field work becomes very, very hard, and the testing work becomes very, very hard in this period. I don't know how many of you has been able to compensate with online work, but it's not very easy, and in some cases, as we saw, it's impossible.
Maybe
Yes, oh, go.
Sorry.
No worries.
From Germany, so maybe I can also tell something about our project. So also after talking to Besnik last week, we reworked our actual plan a little bit. So actually we plan to have 2 workshops, one in Italy and one in Germany, which are about preferable future scenarios together with Fridays for Future and Scientists for Future. And I think it's impossible to have like a workshop the regular way till, I don't know, like end of summer at least. So we decided to do it digitally and changed the concept a little bit, and I think it's working quite nicely. So we plan to start already next week, and we split it into 3 sessions, not only a full day workshop, but 3 digital sessions. And I think it's interesting because we have this new component now that we can also like have it like over the borders. So we don't have this only in Italy, only in Germany anymore. So we can mix up the groups, which is actually an advantage for our project. So everything is a little new for us, and it's an experiment. But I think also in the whole within Designscapes, this is possible because it's all about testing a prototype. So. Yeah.
But perhaps it would be interesting to see what kind of, maybe we can discuss later what kind of tools you are using when going online, instead of using the normal facilitation tools that you would use in the workshop. What kind of tools can you transfer in an online interaction? That would be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we will also document everything, and I mean, for now we're starting with Zoom, but we also have a visual recording included, and this will work slightly different than it would work in a physical way. But yeah, we will definitely talk about everything and also provide you with more information.
Yes. Thank you.
Super. Anyone else? Otherwise, we continue, I think.
Can I go? I also have a question, sorry.
Yeah, no, go.
My name is Jane from Bulgaria. Our project is Urbit. We are working on transforming old derelict urban spaces, which is at the moment, because we also involve like a digital online part, which is now a little bit easier to still pull off. But then the rest requires a lot of on-the-ground work that we've been thinking in the past few weeks how to do. I see that some of you have been, some of the other participants have been contacting the team of DESIGNSCAPES for support. My question is, who is the person that we can talk to see how we can probably reschedule some of the activities and make them a bit more tailored to the current circumstances?
So your first contact point would be your patrons. So you all have been assigned patrons per project, and if they can then communicate it back to us, especially if you want some input on how to redesign or restructure your projects. Obviously, it's quite customized depending on your project, and I don't know all the projects in that level of detail, so we do need to know a little bit more what was the plan, etc. But we definitely, I think there are two ways. The Facebook group is meant as also a place where you can ask these questions, and there's a community of people that are dealing with similar projects. So like we do here, sharing like the Fridays for Future group from Germany that is sharing alternative ways to come up with facilitation, etc. I think the Facebook group is also a place where you could ask those questions, and if people are willing to share, there will be a place also where you can get insights on that. I don't know if Nicola and Luca want to add something to that, or Besnik.
Yeah, I'd like to add that, I mean, I have been in touch with all the beneficiaries of the second call. So I have received a lot of emails from them since, I mean, when we started the contractualization process. And so far, I continue to receive emails and answer them about different issues they have. So please, as Kirsten said, you can refer to your patrons in the first instance, but also to me if you need more information. So yeah, patrons and me will be the reference points, let's say, for any administrative or management issue you may have.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. This is a question. You, I think, mentioned a Facebook group. Are there any like links where I can access the Facebook group? Because I've never seen that group.
Okay, then we will share that with you. They should have been shared already via your patrons as well. But we do that again. It's a closed group, a community of practice, where we also share, for instance, these trainings or other trainings or any, like you see on the slide now, we send some links on how, like, tools to work remotely to help you support and give you inspiration, but also as a place where you can, I hear myself very in echo, a place where you can share ideas and inspiration to the other participants that are working on the projects in DESIGNSCAPES. So we definitely share it with you if you don't have it.
I've already shared. I shared the link in the chat already. You find the link in the chat.
Do you see it?
Yeah, I did. Now I'm entering it. So thank you very much.
Great. Good that you asked. Okay, then I'll continue with. Let me see. So last year we shared with you, or at least with the DESIGNSCAPES groups that were doing the first call, we started the first iteration of the toolbox. This is still on the DESIGNSCAPES website if you haven't seen it. It's a resource, a selection of tools, 15 tools, but obviously not the ultimate toolbox. It's a variety of different tools and methods as presented in different books and academic publications, and also, like mentioned earlier by Aldo, I think there's a lot of available toolkits out there. So our thinking was that these tools and different methods should be combined in different ways, but also in relation to the context of your application. Out there, there's an explosion of information on tools and methods and approaches. And our DESIGNSCAPE Toolbox offers a selection of such tools and methods. But again, it's not the ultimate toolbox. The idea that what we present in the DESIGNSCAPES Toolbox can complement and supplement and integrate existing knowledge you have, rather than proposing yet another set of tools and methods. And today we would like to share this expansion of the toolkit. We call it the second iteration of the toolbox, and we will after this have another iteration. And it now sums up to roughly a set of 30 tools. Last night, also via an email and also via the Facebook group, we shared also a link with you where you can find the overview of the 15 new tools. Again, this is a draft version and we are still working on it. So any comments, therefore, would also be welcome. And any suggestions, we are more than happy to receive them from you. We would like to share a little bit of the process and the rationale behind it. So in order to build capacity for design-enabled innovation in the urban context, it was important for us to know what skills and postures are needed for designers and non-designers. And when we talk about capacity for design-enabled innovation, what we mean is capacities for design. So competences and skills that are used for design expertise, but also capabilities for the urban embedment. So competences that have relevance in creating the needed connections to scale, for instance, and to reach embedment in the urban context. So different methods we use to find out what these capacities and competences should be were literature research, were desk research. We had semi-structured interviews with participants. We had co-creative workshops, but also we reached out to the community of practice like you to ask feedback on tools, and we're still doing that, which led to this visual overview, what we call the capacity building framework, which we're using in our work package 5. So here you can see mapped out the 7 competences that we think are design competences that are relevant when you're working on urban innovation projects. So these are from conceptualization to co-creations to having empathy, problem framing and reframing, to name a few. And per competence, we also mapped out the different tools that we highlighted in the first iteration. So what you can see with empathy, for instance, is tools like persona, cultural probes, the service walkthrough, journey map, and prototyping. So here we try to map out the different tools on the different competences that we thought were needed in design-enabled innovation. But obviously, we wanted to expand this toolbox because this is just a snapshot of what there was. And also we wanted to make sure that we bring in more competences that are needed for design-enabled innovation in the urban context. So what hurdles or pain points do you encounter when working in design-enabled innovation projects in the city? And from our research activities, we could distill 3 main areas or themes for capacity building that are relevant and needed when you work on these type of projects. So those are highlighted in the different colors. So the first one is leading change. So the ability to create meaningful change and leading and creating the conditions that allow for innovation. So the things that are important here is strategic leadership skills, but also the understanding of complexity and futures skills. Then we have the purple direction, which is called working together. And what we mean with that is the ability and know-how for collaborating and networking therefore building relationships in the urban context. So think about stakeholder engagement, community building and local knowledge, but also network for support. And the third one is the blue one below there. It's viability. So that's the need for the ability to understand concepts of feasibility. So you have a great idea, but also you want to make sure that it's sustainable, and we want to know the business acumen on it, and to make sure that it works. So ingredients that are important there is measuring impact of your project, business acumen, what I said before, but also communication and storytelling. How do you pitch your idea? So in the end, this led to 50 more tools. They were roughly focused on these various themes, what you can see in the draft of the toolbox. But again, they are still in development. And if you have input on tools that you think that you find experience are necessary or very effective, we are very open and eager to hear those. So just a reminder of the tools that we had in the first toolbox. So these were the tools that were mentioned and explained and described in the first iteration of the toolbox. Whereas I think from the theory of change, a training has been given a few weeks ago by Tavistock. And then the added tools, what you can see here is on the right side. So we added these 15 tools. So trend analysis, causal loop diagram, 6 thinking heads, mind map, the 5 whys, not 5 whys, wives, the 5 whys. I always, that's a joke. Jobs to be done, the SWOT analysis, the value proposition canvas, idea evaluation matrix, use cases, design orienting future scenarios, the Visa strategy canvas, the how might we tool or technique, card sorting, and multi-factor analysis tool, which is up for debate a little bit. So within the link we sent yesterday, you will find the descriptions and the main components of all these tools. So we will explain per tool why we think they are relevant, how they connect to design enabled innovation projects. And just to highlight that we haven't in this exercise looked specifically at remote tools. So obviously when we were working on it, we didn't have a reality where we were in now, so that we couldn't work physically with people, with users, so we haven't focused on that. But within the description of various tools, there are also online varieties given. So we could maybe in the next thinking process look a little bit more on that. But for this, we haven't looked at that at the moment. So the idea, are there questions so far? I don't think so, or otherwise just shout or wave. Some of the participants of the second call we reached out to, we already asked them feedback on the tools that are on the right side. So that was very helpful to see, okay, how do they use it? And so again, we are still work on these different descriptions and to understand better how useful it is. So what we do now is we highlight per theme a couple of tools that pop up in these bubbles. So the first one, this is one link that I mentioned before. So this is the link where you can find the draft of the DESIGNSCAPES Toolbox. I'm happy to share it after this session as well, with the note that it's not been proofread, that it's still work in progress, but like a co-creative process, we would like to share it with you and eager to hear your feedback and suggestions. So enough said about that. So the first bubble is leading change. So the ability to create meaningful change by leading and creating the conditions that allow innovation. Within DESIGNSCAPES, we are aiming to support meaningful design-enabled innovation projects, but the global context we are in means that we need to find ways to bridge the various gaps between different worldviews, engage stakeholders at political level, for instance, to bring innovation from a grassroots level to a level where they can really create more impact. There's a need to communicate with different disciplines and domains of practice. there can be an array of tools and methods and postures to navigate this complexity and uncertainty in the so-called wicked context. System approaches are in themselves multidisciplinary, but they also spanning fields such as system thinking and future studies, etc. So these are the tools and methods that we have been looking at when we looked at the yellow bubble. Here, as mentioned before, at the first iteration of the toolbox, we focused on the design capabilities and added the tools that were needed in design enabled innovation process. The one that already focused on aspects of this leading change bubble theme were tools such as theory of change that also deals with complexity and change, but also scenarios, stakeholder map, and motivation matrix, to name a few. In the second iteration on the right side, we added a couple of more tools that are focused more on supporting projects that deal with complexity and infinite problems, looking at futures and foresight methods, and that help change and transformation and work, for instance, with themes like sustainability. I just want to highlight a couple of them. So the first one is trend analysis. Well, trend analysis, I think some of you know it already or working with it. It's a survival strategy. We live in a world where the change is exponential, and you can't really, like today, can't really longer afford to only focus on today. We need to think about tomorrow and the day after tomorrow by incorporating foresight methods and scenario thinking capabilities. And trend analysis is one of the more explorative tools when you look at foresight methods. A trend analysis method can be supportive, for example, to identify and analyze needs and opportunities in order to develop new business strategies, design vision of products and service ideas for the nearby future. A trend analysis is useful. A method is useful if we want to design services for a future that we do not know yet, the future that is uncertain. And incorporating trends helps you to observe the weak signals that might give you a clue about the new needs of users and helps you also anticipate the changes yet to come. A trend analysis can use structures such as the pastel, as you can see on the slide, to structure your research along these so-called different factors, so political, economical, social, technological, ecological, and demographic, and are different variations on that. Conducting a trend analysis is not an easy method, and there are different ways and various ways of describing the process. It's a structured process to look into the changes that occur over a longer period, so 3 to 10 years. And it also, you need to bring it back to validate what it means in the context that you are working in today. Different ways to do a trend analysis, if for instance to search and detect different signs of change. You can use scanning or trying to find via desk research or field research trends that you think could be interesting. Understand or sense making, so create an analysis to understand these signs of change, what you see. Here you can connect different research findings and integrate and articulate those insights into key messages or opportunities, and then apply, which is more the creative phase, where you in this stage use the research and trend insights to try to see what could be new opportunities and ideas, but also future scenarios that you can foresee in your future. So this is in a nutshell a little bit about the trend analysis. Another tool we'll highlight in this yellow box or yellow bubble is the causal loop diagram. So when you work with infinite and ever-changing and unpredictable problems, systems thinking offers a collection of tools that helps you better understand where to intervene in that system. A causal loop diagram is a visual presentation of any given system. You have key variables, and you can see how they are connected. And it's an easy way to understand complexity fairly quickly, and it gives you an understanding where to intervene. So for instance, here at the example, you can say that you start with new customers arriving, which leads to more customers occupying tables, which enforces the perceived restaurant quality, and then new customers will be arriving. So you make these different loops to see where the intervention points are, but also where the leverage is, where you need to intervene. And this can make you more aware of how the system is working, but also where you have to start thinking about the solution. Then I give the word to Nicola, that will talk a little bit about the working together bubble.
Yes, this bubble is about as you say, working together means supporting collaboration and networking among citizens in an urban context. So having designers supporting this process of collaboration of citizens in the urban context. Why these are important? Because usually we look at when we look at the process of innovation, very often we think of an innovator, a person or a studio, is one subject, a designer, which innovates and innovates by generating technological changes and that change a system of meanings. This is not what happens in the urban context. We see a lot of examples of citizens or initiatives that are bottom up, citizens that take the initiatives by using their social skills, their problem solving strategies, and so on. And so the reflection came into the design world, and probably most of you are familiar with this reflection about diffuse design. So everybody actually is designing, and in the urban context, citizens sometimes are designing, but the issue is how can we, first of all, of course, is does the design have a role into that? Can it be useful for if the process is citizen designers designing? And the answer, one of the possible answer to this question is that designers can actually support, facilitate this process of creativity and innovation, because citizens are sometimes dealing with problems that are complex, or citizens are not familiar with design processes. So these tools here, the tools we include in this bubble, are tools for facilitating and engaging citizens. The tools in the first toolbox there were tools like personas that are, or cultural probes, which are tools that are used to understand users. I'm just synthesizing here. Of course, they are quite different from each other, but cultural probes is eliciting needs from users, and personas is building some fictitious character persona on the basis of the information we have about users, in order to understand how they would use a possible service. Service walkthrough is a tool that is used in collaboration with citizens to understand how they would actually use the service, how they would work through the service. Co-creation workshop is not properly a tool, it's a method, and there are many different kinds of co-creation workshops, but they are usually very useful strategies or tools to facilitate citizen creativity and innovation. Journey map, there is a category here, journey map, blueprint, and touchpoint metrics, which are design tools that help designing a service by disassemble it into a series of events. So they are based on narrative. And experience prototyping is a tool for prototyping services and understanding what kind of experience people would have in the service. We added some other tools. 5 Whys is a tool about creativity, as well as a job to be done. Idea evaluation metrics is a tool for helping people taking decision when multiple concepts are emerging. Use cases are a tool similar to journey map to facilitate, to elicit needs by a very detailed analysis of each touch point of a service. How might we is another sort of creativity tool, and card sorting is a facilitation tool. Here I will go through some of those tools. Can we go to the next slide, Kirsten? The journey map. This is probably the most common tool used by service designers, especially, and probably most of you are familiar with this tool. It's a tool that is basically when you collaborate with people, with citizens that are not familiar to design, and you ask them to describe a service, they will often describe a service as synthesize the service, and they will start understanding the service only when you ask them to tell the story of the service. So what happens in the service, what is the sequence of event, and the journey map is exactly a sequence of event, the representation of a sequence of event, which can be very simple. The simplest one is basically a number of I don't know, boxes describing what happens in each moment. But it could also become more complex because there could be the representation of what, for instance, what like in this picture you see here, what communication tools are used, what is the emotional journey of the people involved in the event, and so on. There are other factors that I can't read here in this slide, I don't remember, but I mean, you can add other factors. What is important of the journey map is that it can be the basis for building blueprints, for instance, when blueprints are specifying, for instance, who are the actors involved in each moment of the journey, and what is the role and the competence, and they are also related, for instance, to touch point metrics, because we can build a sort of very high level journey map, understand which touch points are involved in each step of the journey, and then we can have a use case or a journey of each touch point. So it is the fundamental step of designing a service in the urban context. Next slide. This is card sorting. Card sorting is a method that is a facilitation method. Especially it could be used either in a session of co-design, or it can be used as a card set to leave to people to facilitate a discussion and an interaction among them. This is an example here. This is a card set that has been invented by a studio in Milano. It was for co-housing. People didn't know each other before entering in the co-housing, and so the designers wanted to involve them in a discussion on how to work together for several tasks that are common in the everyday life in the co-housing. This is for them to understand each other, to find some issues that may emerge, and so on. the task could be shopping together, or study together, the kids studying together, or sharing bikes and so on. So this is of course you can have a card set that has been prepared in advance, or you can even have people working on a card set during a co-design session. And there is another case of using the cards that, for instance, has been used in an experiment in UK about 10 years ago, using cards to facilitate the interaction between doctors and patients, practitioners and patients. So instead of having doctors asking patients what are the symptoms, the patient could use a card set, for instance, to read what kind of symptoms they could have given their own disease, like diabetes, and explain and choosing the cards so that they enter in the office of the practitioners, having ready already, without asking, waiting for the doctor to ask questions, already introducing the arguments with the cards. So using cards is very useful for, can be very useful for facilitating interaction, either with the direct intervention of designers, or when the designer is not there, but people need to understand each other, to talk to each other. And the next tool is use cases. This is a tool that, as I mentioned, is very similar to journey maps. It is textual in many cases. You could also find use cases that use. I mean, this is a tool that has been borrowed by IT system architectures, and where they use it for understanding the various steps of the designing a software. In service design, it has been used for listing the possible the details of a possible interaction, of a possible touch point, and so it is a very detailed representation of the touch point, and is based on a scheme. It has a title, a list of actors, and possibly the actors should be named. So by giving a name to the actor, it helps to figure out what kind of personas, and sometimes the use cases that are based on a previous work on personas. And then a flow of events. So again, the narrative of what happens in the service, and then a precondition and the postcondition. What the users have to have before this use case, because before this interaction, and what users have to have after, what the user have after the interaction, what is left out of the interaction. And the use cases can be useful when people are not very familiar with graphic techniques, because they are textual, and they also can be very useful in eliciting the requirements, because for each step of the flow of event, there may be a specific requirement emerging that can then be integrated in the design process. And the next slide is, I think, for Luca.
So first off, a couple of answers to the chat, because I see that some people are asking to have these slides, and Kirsten, I think we can share the slides, either maybe Facebook or in some other ways, if people believe that these slides can be helpful. I think it can be helpful, yes, just to show kind of like some kind of potential directions, or to provide some suggestions on what kind of tools that can be used in their work. And then, as also Kirsten mentioned before, this is not supposed to be like the ultimate toolbox. We didn't want to produce yet another toolbox just to contribute this proliferation of toolbox, but really, I think we created this for two reasons. One of the reasons was that we thought that we could provide a sort of like a somewhat original combination of different methods, including methods coming from strategy, or coming from areas like, for example, philanthropic interventions that are not very well used in design. For example, theory of change is something that could be much more used in design, and as well like the KPI tool that we have in the previous version of the toolbox, the replication analysis tool, and some other tools that we also added in this new selection. So I would say that, you know, probably one of the reasons behind the, you know, us creating this toolbox was really to provide this sort of like original combination that also included viability. That is really like, you know, the topic that I would like to discuss now. And the second aspect is that we just wanted to provide some kind of directions that you can explore on your own by, for example, further looking into descriptions, cases of projects that used the tools that we present. As you know, Kirsten mentioned before, there are 3 areas, and one of the areas is the ability to understand concepts of feasibility, business acumen, and long-term sustainability. This area really has to do with the strategic, managerial, organizational, financial components of design-driven innovation projects. And this is an area that generally remains a little bit underexplored by other toolboxes, by other existing toolboxes. And that's why we thought that we could provide some tools. So if we go to the next slide, we can see how already in the first version of the toolbox, we added some very familiar toolboxes for tools for you know, most of you, like business model canvas. Probably you're already familiar with that. Motivation matrix, theory of change, KPI tool, and replication analysis tool. This might be maybe a little bit less well known, but still, we still think that they're very relevant, especially for the kind of interventions that we like to carry out, you know, within the urban environment, in collaboration with a variety of different stakeholders. I would add in these uncertain times, so it becomes even more relevant to strategically plan our interventions. So we have like a first toolbox that we released with a certain number of tools related to viability, and the new iteration we added 3 tools. A canvas that is more related to strategy, then a SWOT analysis and value proposition canvas that are, you know, coming from corporate strategy mostly. And if we go very quickly through the next 3 slides, and these are the final 3 slides, then you know, we can just maybe, you know, open the floor for discussion. This is one of the tools that we added, and it's just a simple canvas. So you just have, you know, this like, you know, a visual template that helps you go through 3 key aspects of strategy. So your goals, or the goals and objectives that are tied to your own project, the means that you have, so the resources that you have, and these could be like, you know, of course, financial resources. It could be that you have a software application. It could be, you know, any kind of resource that then you can mobilize using specific capabilities. So you might have, for example, like a software application, but then in order to use the software application, you need to have specific knowledge. And so this is all what we refer to when we think about means. And then ways are the specific ways in which you mobilize your resources. So strategy is really about finding a balance between these 3 aspects. So your objectives, your ends, your means, so your resources and the capabilities, and then the ways in which you use your resources and capabilities. And this canvas is just a way to look at your project using these specific lenses. the SWOT analysis is this is probably a tool that most of you are already familiar with, because it's one of the most well-known tools coming from corporate strategy. It's been like codified in the 70s, and it's really like widely used. So I wouldn't be surprised if you in the past you wrote some kind of like business plans and you added the SWOT analysis. And we do have actually a SWOT analysis in our own application for our open calls. And we just added here because we thought that it's like a simple but yet quite effective tool to look into the existing environment, so opportunities and threats that are present in the existing environment, and the strengths and weaknesses of an organization. And finally, the value proposition canvas is a tool developed by the same person, or the same team actually, that invented the business model canvas. The business model canvas is just a visual way to display some kind of like key information in relation to business model. So the proponents of this business model canvas decided to also imagine a complementary tool that could be used together with the business model canvas. So they say, rather than just using business model canvas, you can also use this value proposition canvas in order to have a little bit more fine-grained view of customers. And the value proposition canvas brings together a customer profile in terms of like gains, pains, and so on, and needs and interests, and the value proposition offered by an organization. Yeah, this is pretty much it. Maybe Kirsten, you want to spend a couple of words, final words here?
No, I think like you said, I think we planned now on, if you still have the time, to have an open discussion to maybe get some feedback, answer suggestions of questions that we have now. So that will be my suggestion for now.
Yes, I think there is a question here on that Benjamin asks via chat. I don't really know if it's a question or a comment, but I fully agree.
Hello.
Says, yeah. So I fully agree with you, Benjamin. You wanna maybe like say something?
No, it's just a remark. Is that the value proposition are only two cases of the business model Canva. Actually, I think they do this new book. It's more like marketing tool. The business model Canva, it's a bit complicated, and then they isolated the two boxes of the business model Canva, and they do a new book.
Yeah.
It's just a comment.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. What I can say is that all these canvases and tools are simplifications, and as such, they also problematic in the sense that they reduce complexity. And so while you work on your innovation project, you want to kind of like be able to handle complexity. So you want to reduce complexity up to a certain extent. However, you also, I think, have to be aware that if you use these tools, you're not like you are like simplifying and not really elaborating complexity as you could. So it's perfectly fine to use them, and we recommend using them, but we also recommend that you are aware that that there might be some attention that you need to put there in order to understand that things can be a little bit more complicated than the tool suggests.
Nicola, do you want to say something?
No, I would say that most of the tools that we are working with are somehow reducing complexity in many sense. Like when we have an idea, the first thing we do is to, as I mentioned before, is to disassemble this idea into a narrative and split it in a sequence of events. And this is another way of reducing complexity to make it manageable. Or when we want to understand who our users are, we use personas. That's again a way of simplifying and finding archetypes of the possible users that will probably be part of the design process. The challenge, of course, is to what extent we reduce complexity, because if we reduce complexity too much, like if we don't analyze the right personas, or if we are not very detailed sometimes in analyzing certain aspects of the design interaction, the reduction of complexity is too much, and we risk to lose control of what we are designing. Is there a comment from Aldo?
To speak, Aldo, if you want to talk.
Yes, thanks. No, I like your toolbox. I think it's very useful, and also like that the three emphases that you put on there. So my question is with the first one, and also a related question is, so leading change may sometimes suggest more than you do, in the sense that it's like you are going to lead a big change process in an urban context. Whereas what I find often, and I think that's also what you mean, often it's you pick up on vibes that are there, on things that are already happening, the energy that's there, and you try to enlarge that and to channel it and to boost it. So maybe catalyzing change could be a broader term. So that's one question. The second one is the iteration, the evolution of this to grow towards impact. So I think you have to go through this many times before you reach that. Can you say a little bit more about that more integrative perspective on all of the three emphases that you distinguish?
I have a question. I have an answer to the first question about catalyzing change. That could actually be an interesting alternative to leading change. This is also because yes, the change we are generating can be a minimal change, like a new service applied for a limited group of people, or it could be a broad change, like we are changing the way the city is shaped. I don't know. Sometimes it may also happen in designing. So probably this is a good suggestion. And of course, the tools that are here are, sometimes can be used. They can be used both in small changes or in large changes, taking into account that, of course, when we are looking at large changes, we are not aiming at controlling the change, but just triggering the change, like provoking the change. For instance, there are Kirsten mentioned trend analysis, but for instance, also there are other tools like theory of change and future design orienting future scenarios, which are different ways of looking, either by projecting a number of factors, as in trend analysis, projecting them into the future, or by understanding what kind of future we can have, and based, of course, on an analysis of the present, and project it back and see what are the actions that we can actually select to have that kind of future. So it is in general some of those tools related to navigating between present and future and desirable future are about catalyzing change. The second question you had.
Yeah, maybe I can start with answering that question about the integration of the 3 bubbles or the iteration. Do you hear me or not?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I heard because the idea behind this is, as I said in the beginning, this is a second iteration of Toolbox. So in the end, we don't go for an ultimate toolbox, but we do understand that people have different entry points. So for instance, you might be a trained designer, but we also want to disseminate this capacities for design enabled innovation to a large scope of people. So there could be politicians, there could be people with a background in economics or in business life. So if you see those 3 bubbles, they also have different emphases. So if you will be coming from the corporate world or from a strategy consultancy, you might have more experience in the blue bubble, but you need to learn more or build your capacity in the purple bubble, which is about more the community aspect and working together. So we also, in one hand, they are all equally important, but we don't come in the same. Our starting point is not the same in terms of our learning journey. So therefore, we wanted to build in some flexibility to see, pick and choose and customize your learning journey as you build your capacities for design-enabled innovation.
Thanks, very clear. Yes, I agree.
I would like to Avi. She was proposing that also are included in the trend analysis, and that this is definitely relevant. It is emerging more and more the GDPR, but probably will emerge even more now when you know, with this big change that the COVID-19 is bringing about, and I'm interested in included most probably for those who actually is done those ethical issues were included in the social aspects, and sometimes
Nicola, you're breaking up a bit with me, at least. So
but
I don't know.
probably it is work that voice is breaking up.
Very well, Nicola. But while Nicola,
I'm changing location, so you will.
Maybe while you're changing location, yeah, we can hear you, Nicola. I would say maybe like also Avi and Alessandra want to add something to their comments.
Many will in many cases I would say that they explicitly addressed analysis.
Like Luca said, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I would just want to give the floor to Avi and Alessandra because they were making comments in the chat box and they are, I think, interesting.
Also, I agree it requires capacity.
Nicola, maybe you should shut down your camera because we can't hear you very well. So Avi and Alessandra, could you say something?
Hello, I'm Alessandra. Thank you for your presentation. It's very interesting. And I want to comment about the trend analysis. In my opinion, it's very, very important to have a good trend analysis for start a good innovation for your project. But in my experience, I know that it's very difficult to that everybody can do a good trend analysis, because it depends on the capacity of observation of the researcher, and about the previous knowledge, and about the network that he can look. But and also need a multidisciplinary team, in my opinion. So I wonder if it's possible to create a tool that is an objective tool that everybody can use easy. It's very interesting if you can do it, but in my opinion, it's difficult, because I know, I see every day with my students that they have different capacity to observe the trends. It depends how you develop this capacity, and how big is your culture about social issue, about cultural issue, about a lot of issues. You understand what I mean?
Yeah, no, and I agree with you as well. And I think also in overarch, the 30 tools that we are presenting now, those have a variation in expertise, or like how much knowledge you have or experience you need to have with the tool to be able to conduct them easily. Some are quite easy to implement, and others need experience, need exercise, like we also described in the first iteration of the toolbox. It's learning by practicing, by doing it over and over again. So I think trend analysis is definitely one of the methods that involves more experience, and also relates to a posture or mindset of people, how they look to the world, what's happening around them, to be able to observe certain signals and changes. So it's not always that the fact that it's a tool that therefore you can learn it. It's also has to do with talent and what fits you better than others. And maybe Luca wants to add something to it.
If I can really briefly add to that, Kirsten, about the trend analysis, and I think it's super important what you guys are saying, that you have to specify the way you're looking to the world. I think it helps always, if you're doing this exercise with a group, to sit down and in a piece of paper basically describe your lens to the world. And there's even like some pre-lenses written out there online, but if you're looking at it from a really human-centered point of view, or if you're being more negative about the possible scenarios of the trends or the emerging issues you see, but just having that almost moral sit down with the people that you are at least planning to share the work of trend analysis with. It's not going to fix all the issues, but it helps a lot to start, or to at least keep a critical mind of, okay, we may be seeing this because we approach it from this perspective or point of view. Just wanted to add my 10 cents to that.
Anyone else wants to see some more chats? Thank you very much. Amelia is leaving. No. Anyone wants to ask or add more questions?
I'm back, and sorry that the internet has always worked fine, but of course this time it had to stop. So I'm with my mobile now.
Okay. Now we hear you correctly now. So
yeah.
I think I just ask one more time if people have questions, or they want to write it in the chat if they feel uncomfortable talking.
Yeah, Kirsten, I may also say that they can also use Facebook. If they have questions at a later stage, feel free to post them on Facebook, and we will do our best to follow the conversations there as well.
Yeah, I think so too. And after this session, we will send out a short survey from our partner from the UK, Tavistock, to also help us learn and what you find insightful and what not. So it's something you can expect, and we would like to hear your feedback on what worked, what didn't work with this session or discussion. Yes, and okay, for now everything is clear. Great. And if I can have one request, I think anything you want to share in terms of your alternative ways of doing your process that could be inspirational for others, please share them if you want on Facebook, but also if you have questions. I think it could be also very inspirational to see new ways of doing things and redesigning the process. And if we find inspiration that we can share with you of doing field work in a time like this, or like sessions where you need to come up with alternative, we will also share it with you. That being said, I think I would like to thank you for your time. And thank you. Yeah, and just reading the chat as well. And I will share the slides as well. And I wish you all a very nice day, and good luck where you are and in what situation you are. We hope you will be safe. And please stay in touch if you have any questions.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thanks.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.